Hey everyone, Razzbowski here, and my favourite generation is Generation 1. That is right guys, I am a Gen 1er, 100% red and blue runs through my veins as I sit here and pump my arms. I'm just bleeding red and blue guys, I'm bleeding red and blue. In all seriousness though guys, Generation 1 is exactly where I started off in this Pokemon obsession. I remember years and years ago, I was at school, and my friend came up to me and he's like, you've got to play this game, it's called Pokemon, it's Pokemon Blue, go ahead, pick Bulbasaur, he's the best. And I was like, okay, go on then, let me the game, and he let me the game overnight. And the obsession started. You know when you play one of those games and you just sit there all night, your mum tells you to go to bed, but you're like, no, I'll secretly hide the game away. And obviously back in those days, you didn't have Game Boys with a light in the background either, so my Game Boy was one of the proper retro old school ones, so I had to sit there with the lamp on, trying to sneakily play the game, even putting some clothes, you know, under the gap in the door so my mum couldn't see that there was light popping through the bottom of the door, and the obsession just went on from there. I was absolutely knackered when I went to school the next day, and gutted as well, because I had to hand over this fantastic game back over to my friend. But my birthday was coming up a couple of months later, and I asked my family for Pokemon Blue, and I luckily, from my auntie, she managed to give me Pokemon Red and Blue, and the obsession just grew from there. I mean, look at us now, we're in 2014, and I am still playing Pokemon. I'm still loving these games, and it all stems from the initial love, the initial burst and attention that Red and Blue captivated me in. I mean, picking your first Pokemon, when Professor Oak's speaking to you right at the start of the game, he asks you to input your name, and you go into his lab, and he tells you to pick a Pokemon, and you're like, which fucking Pokemon do I pick? Do I pick the squirrel? Do I pick the fire dragon lizard, or do I pick the thing that looks like a lettuce? I have no idea what any of these things are, but because back in that day you didn't have the internet, you didn't have anything like that, you had to do it yourself, you had to complete the game yourself, you had to find out what the best Pokemon you were yourself, and it was just such a revolutionary moment in my life in gameplay that I had never experienced before, and that will always live with me. And yes, X and Y and Black and White 2 and Black and White were absolutely fantastic games. Graphically, they were amazing, storyline brilliant as well, but they will never compare to Generation 1 for me. So that is why, ladies and gentlemen, Generation 1 is my favorite generation, and it always will be. Hope you enjoyed this little story time with Razzbowski. And make sure you listen to the rest of the Poketubers, because they're shit hot.
Okay, so the question I've been asked is, what is my favorite generation and why? Now, most of you guys are probably thinking, oh my god, this guy is just like hopping on the bandwagon. But my favorite generation is Generation 1, for the simple reason that is how I started. I started playing Pokemon Yellow, and the fact that it was a black and white game that allowed me to just sit there for hours on end, just like running around the place, catching these little things in Pokeballs, and then being like, what is this? What does this do? What does a Vine Whip do? What is Leech Seed? What is this? I died? What? A Pokemon can die? What is this? But the simple reason that Generation 1 is my favorite is the fact that without Generation 1 being made, and without me actually finding out about Pokemon, like through Pokemon Yellow, Red, Blue, all of that, I wouldn't be able to be so excited to see all these new Pokemon. Like, I am absolutely amazed by how far Pokemon has come since Generation 1. It's gone from black and white to 3D. Like, that is just the biggest. That is crazy. But yeah, anyway, Generation 1, Professor Oak has always been my bro. He is my boy. He is fist pumping me all day long. He is sending creepy letters to my mum, even though that was Professor Sycamore. But you know, Professor Oak did that first. He did it after he left. You know, you never know. But yeah, Generation 1 holds a place in my heart, because without Generation 1 I wouldn't be so into Pokemon right now, and I wouldn't be, I just, yeah. And also Generation 1 is my favourite because of the fact that it has my boy Onion, aka Bulbasaur, aka the only Kanto starter you ever need. But yeah, anyway, I love Generation 1, it holds a special place in my heart. But yeah, Generation 1 for the win.
So what's my favorite generation? Well, my favorite generation is Generation 2. Now, I did start off playing Gen 1, Red, Blue, Yellow. Great games. I loved them. They're probably my second or third favorite gen. Probably second more than third, but anyway. Reason I love Gen 2 more than Gen 1, I mean, you get to play through two regions. You get to play through the Kanto and the Johto, so kind of a mix of both. You know, not every day, not every game, you know, you get to play through two regions. like the Kanto and Johto regions. So it's a bit of it's a different thing. Even though the antagonist is the same Team Rocket in both Gen 1 and Gen 2, it's still a fun game to play. You still get like a deeper game mode. You still get into do a little bit more than your average stuff. And not just that, but at the end of the game, when you get all 16 badges, you beat the Elite Four twice. Mount Silver is just, when you go to face Red, it is the most exciting thing in the world. I couldn't think for a word for a second. It's really just adrenaline rush. It's adrenaline rush. You're just like, yes, Red, let's go. He's gonna get his ass kicked. This is gonna be an intense battle. I've faced him a few times, and it's always been such a great battle with him. And he doesn't even say a word. He just sits there and just looks at you with just the deadest stares. Doesn't say anything, no dialogue. It's just so intense. So that's one of the reasons why I love Generation 2. It's my favorite generation, and that's my reason why. So there you go. There you have it.
Alright, so my favorite generation of Pokemon would definitely have to be second generation. Reason to it is, start off with the starters. Favorite trio of starters. Not my favorite starters, but my favorite trio of starters with Cyndaquil, Totodile, and Chikorita. Although they are pretty bad competitively when you look at it, I still like the design. I like how cool they look. I just, overall, I love what they can do. Definitely enjoy the fact that my favorite legendary is in there, Raikou. I don't know how you enunciate it because I don't remember them watching it in the anime for the most part, but whatever. Yeah, but it was super annoying getting that. But once you caught a Raikou, what? Okay, I'm gonna go with Raikou. Whenever you caught that Raikou, it was just yeah, you felt amazing because you spent all this time searching, weaving through the entire Johto region just to find that thing. And sorry, and then let's go with the start of day and night system. That thing was, although I think my battery would always used to run dry with my crystal version, but the day and night system was definitely fun. The day system with the whole bug catching competition was extremely fun. It would be always okay, let's try to. I never understood the strategy until recently, but when I was a kid, I'd be oh, I gotta go catch a Scyther. Oh, I gotta catch a Pinsir. You know, just throw a Pokeball and I think it was a Safari. I can't even remember what ball it was. It must have been something. I can't even remember. But a bug catching ball or something like that. I would be oh, I'd never win, which was super unfortunate. I don't think I've ever won first place on that thing. I don't think I ever will because I still don't understand the strategy. But it was super fun because it'd be oh, I have something to do on Tuesday and Thursdays, you know? And then moving sprites, definitely plus. The addition of dark and steel types, the addition of this is pretty much one of two times after the initial release of Pokemon where an additional typing was added for the main series game, which was really nice and creative to balance out the game because psychic types were running rampant in this generation and fighting types were extremely weak. So when they added the dark and steel types, it was definitely on point. And then moving sprites, although they weren't too much, but they were still fun, you know, just having little Zubats flap their wings BAM! I don't know what sound effects, just hopefully, maybe Sin decides to put a sound effect for a Zubat, I don't know. Just a moving Zubat, and then yeah, the colors and stuff. But yeah, second gen, definitely my fave.
My favorite generation was Generation 2. Yeah, everybody can be wait, why? Generation 2 isn't that cool? It was. My first generation was Generation 1, but I don't know. Generation 1 is just complete nostalgia. It's not really the best ever, but it's good. It's a good starting point. Generation 2, well, it has my favorite Pokemon, which is Typhlosion. It has one of my other favorite Pokemon, which is Feraligatr. My favorite legendary, which is Suicune. The point that, you know, it's just a pretty, you know, it's a really chill region in my opinion. The gym leaders are cool. The region is nice. And, well, you know, it just has a nice little touch to it. There's a light tower. There's the new addition of steel types. You know, honestly, it's just really cool. You know, so dark types, of course. I don't know, I enjoyed it a lot, and the point that the after game is that you gotta revisit Kanto after about 10 to 15 years or something like that, after all this has happened, Cinnabar Island meltdown, all that kind of stuff, you gotta revisit and get to see Gary, aka Blue, and Ash, aka Red. I know they're different characters, whatever. Just see the point that you can like just see all that, and that's the after game. That is just, it's awesome. I love that so much. Best after game ever. And you got to do so much with it. And the main story is just pretty cool, pretty typical of a Pokemon game. And I don't know, I just love second generation so much, and that's basically my reasoning. And plus, I played through it maybe like 100 times, legit. And I got all 252 Pokemon in my Pokemon Crystal without Game Shark use at all. So I never ever used a Game Shark, and I got all 252 Pokemon, you know, through hexing with Celebi and all that kind of stuff. But it was so much fun, so worth it. That's pretty much my explanation on it, and yeah.
What's up, my Sylveolutions? It's TheDarkSylveon here, and my favourite generation out of all 6 so far has got to be 3rd generation. Now, this is because I grew up, well, I started Pokemon in the 3rd generation, so I really enjoyed going through the Hoenn region and trying for hours to capture a Feebas to turn into my Lotic, and in the end, 3rd gen became my favourite because, you know, it's just the nostalgia factor about it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Kanto and Johto, and I know I'm going to get so much hate for that, but it's just because I didn't really grow up with it. I grew up from 3rd gen and onwards, and when I went back to play them, they just didn't really interest me as much, and that's why Hoenn is my favourite, because, you know, it's amazing, and Milotic's there, and Wallace is there, and Elite Four is there, Phoebe's there, Tantalize, they're just people, and so I am so hyped for Ras.
My favorite Pokemon generation is Generation 3. I didn't start with Gen 3, but it was the first one that I really got into. I was about 9 years old or so. It was my favorite generation. My favorite Pokemon are from there. Absol, Glalie, a bunch of others. I love it. I love the legends. I love the puzzles and the gimmicks of the Shedinja and the Sky Pillar and all that stuff. I love Gen 3, and that's why.
Yo guys, I'm back again. Today we're talking about what my favourite generation is. Now, overall my favourite generation is Generation 3. That is the generation that I really had my own Pokemon game. You know, the first game was Ruby, that was the one I got for Christmas. You know, I'd played other generations, but that was the first game I got. And, you know, I played that so many times. You know, Fire Red and Leaf Green were also fantastic games. And I think the main reasons I like them is the nostalgia factor. But it was also something about the mix between amazing new games like Ruby and Sapphire, and then the fact that there was Fire Red and Leaf Green, which my older brother had played, and he always raved about Red and Blue. And then I get to play these games, which are like my brother's childhood, and I think there was something really awesome about being able to play something from my brother's childhood, and I just really enjoyed that factor. So yeah, 3rd gen is definitely my favourite. Maybe not so much just for the Pokemon, maybe it's just for the nostalgia. You know, the actual set of Pokemon, new Pokemon in that generation isn't even that good. Like, there's some pretty average things in there, like, you know, Makuhita, Nosepass and stuff like that. But generally, it just somehow is my favourite generation, and it is definitely due to nostalgia. So yeah, other generations are really good. You know, I've really liked 6th gen. I hated 5th gen. Not because of the Pokemon, just generally I didn't like the games, but you know, all the generations are good, but Generation 3 just stands out so much for me. Thanks for having me guys, PGB signing out.
Well, I mean, I am the 4th gen gamer, so it's only a given that my favorite gen is 4th gen because it is just so swag. No, seriously, 4th gen is amazing. It just, I feel like it kind of just connected like the old days of Pokemon when everything's so pixelated with, you know, 3rd gen and, you know, all nostalgia with 1st and 2nd gen to the modern days of 6th gen and 5th gen, kind of shit, but, you know, they added in a bunch of cool evolutions. Diamond and Pearl, they were a little slow games, but I feel like they had a certain charm about them. They added the special and physical split, which is awesome. Then Platinum just made things better, and they have a really cool storyline when you get to go into the Terrestrial world. I know that some people don't like the storyline. I think it's pretty cool that they go into mythology and everything. You have fucking Team Galactic, they're a bunch of terrorists, they're blowing up bombs, that's really cool. And what makes 4th gen even better is that they took 2nd gen, which is pretty cool, and they remade it with 4th gen awesomeness. You put them both together, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver are some of the best games out there. Just in the Pokemon franchise, probably the best in my opinion. It always switches for me between Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Platinum, but Heart Gold and Soul Silver are so fucking amazing. You have Kanto and Johto in one 4th gen has 3 regions. I know some people say, oh, it's a 2nd gen game. Yeah, but it was made during the 4th generation of Pokemon, so that's why it's 4th gen, you know? Heart Gold and Soul Silver, fucking phenomenal games. 4th gen also really was at, you know, the peak of the Pokemon Ranger side series, and that series is amazing in my opinion. The anime wasn't that great. There were a couple good movies too with The Rise of Darkrai, and I feel like it was just such a great time for Pokemon fans, and then it kind of dipped down again with 5th gen, but 4th gen was just like one of its peaks. You know, they had some awesome games. Diamond and Pearl really launched it 4th gen well, and then they finished it off awesome with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and that's what I have to say. That's why I'm the 4th gen gamer. Some awesome stuff going on, and there's not a lot of things that I don't like about 4th gen, and then 5th gen sucks. I don't know how you can take such an awesome gen and then just go to 5th gen, everything sucks. But anyway, yeah, that's why I like 4th gen. Thank you for the time here, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.
Hey guys, AWildChikorita here, and my favorite generation of Pokemon is definitely the 4th generation. This is the Sinnoh region, where Diamond and Pearl Platinum was first released for the DS. So before the 4th generation, we had never seen a Pokemon game on the DS, and we had been playing on our Game Boys our entire childhood. Which, nothing wrong with that, the Game Boy is awesome, but the DS has stepped up the Pokemon world significantly for us since then. I also based my favorite gen off of the number of Pokemon that I liked in that gen, and it just so happens that 4 out of the top 10 of my favorite Pokemon are from the Sinnoh region. This would be Togekiss, Gallade, Staraptor, and my all-time favorite out of all 700 and something Pokemon is Luxray. And I'm sure the OldSchoolSin will agree with me there. But this generation also had some epic legendaries. There was Darkrai, there was Giratina, and then there was the god himself, Arceus. So you can't even argue with that. So we also got some Pokemon from other generations, some older generations, that we had wanted to see evolve since we were little kids. There was, there was Magneton, there was Magmar, there was Elekid, there was Tangela, I don't know if I said Tangela, there was Yanma, there was Lickitung, there was just so many Pokemon that they evolved for us that we'd wanted to see. So, Nintendo did an awesome job in that. Also, other things that I liked in the Sinnoh region, other than just the Pokemon. The graphics had been updated significantly from the Game Boy Advance, so, seeing new graphics and stuff were awesome. There was the addition to the Poketch I really liked and all the different applications. I also really love the Sinnoh region champion, Cynthia. She's a complete badass, and she's been one of my favorite characters ever since. And one of my favorite all-time things about Diamond Pearl Platinum is the Adventure Kit. And you were able to mine underground, and you were able to connect via Wi-Fi or whatever they called it, and you were able to play with your friends, and this was a great addition to the Pokemon series. So for these reasons, the 4th generation is definitely my favorite generation. I love each and every one of them, of course, but 4th generation is definitely my favorite.
Hey guys, it's JustPlayPokemon, and I'm back with another Pokemon YouTubers on here on the PokemonFabFive. Thank you guys so much for all your support on the series and everything. Now let's get right to the question. My favorite generation is obviously Generation 6. I was a Gen 1er, I played since the first game, but I can recognize that I have had the absolute most fun that I've ever had in a Pokemon game in Generation 6 with the Wonderlock, with the Wonder Trades. Those two things have just turned the game on its ear, and Gen 6 was set up to be easy for a newcomer to come in and play, but also challenging if you put some special rules like the lock stuff on it, and you get the experience share early. Overall, I love Gen 6 because I feel it's a huge graphical improvement. You get the skates, you have an easy way to get around, you don't have to use a bunch of HMs and do all that other stuff. I'm just not a fan of that. You can get some cool Pokemon. Then of course there's the fairy type because that balances everything out with the dragons and stuff. I love Gen 6 because it is the most fun that I've had. It just fits me and my style, which is to have fun playing the game, enjoy it. It's not uber competitive, but it is an absolute blast to play, and it has the most features, and it also has the best soundtrack. How can you not get loving that music? It's so happy, puts you in a great mood. I love Generation 6.